Life will throw challenges at you that shake you to your core. Moments when you don't know which way to turn, when nothing seems to go right, and the road ahead feels unclear. In those moments, it's easy to doubt, to feel lost, to question if you're walking alone. But you've got to remember something: when life gets tough, that's not when you give up, that's when you press in. That's when you trust in a power higher than yourself. You trust that God has a plan. You may not see it, but it's there. Trusting Him doesn't mean the path will always be smooth, but it does mean you will never walk it alone. When your back is against the wall, trust God. When the winds of life are howling, trust God. You may not always understand why things happen the way they do, but trust that He's working in ways you cannot see. Trust that He's preparing you for something greater, something beyond what you can even imagine. You're not forgotten, you're not forsaken, you're exactly where you need to be. Faith over fear is not just a phrase, it's a mindset, a way of living, especially when life feels uncertain. When you're standing at the edge of the unknown, fear can creep in and paralyze you, making you question everything. Fear whispers that you're not good enough, that you're not going to make it. But faith shouts that no matter what, you're not alone, and you have the strength within you because God is guiding your steps. Fear and faith cannot occupy the same space, and it's up to you which one you let in. Choosing faith doesn't mean ignoring the reality of your situation. It means acknowledging that yes, things might be tough, but you trust that God is in control. Faith is the voice that says, I may not know what's going to happen next, but I trust the one who does. It's trusting that even in the darkest moments, when everything feels like it's falling apart, God is working behind the scenes. You may not understand it now, but faith believes that His plan is greater than what you can see. When uncertainty strikes, it's easy to lean into fear because fear is immediate. It grips you. It's loud. But faith is quiet. It requires stillness. It requires you to pause, breathe, and say, I trust you, God. And when you make that choice, you find that fear starts to lose its power. You don't have to know how it's going to work out, but you do have to know who is working it out. Faith is the anchor that holds you steady when the storms of life rage around you. Faith over fear also means understanding that control is an illusion. You can plan, you can prepare, but at the end of the day, there are so many things outside of your control. And that's where God steps in. He's the one holding the pieces, arranging them in ways you couldn't even imagine. So instead of focusing on what you can't control, place your focus on the one who controls it all. Trust that He's already gone ahead of you, preparing the way. When fear tells you that you're not strong enough, faith reminds you that you don't have to be. God's strength is made perfect in your weakness. You don't have to fight every battle on your own because He's already won the victory. Faith over fear is a declaration that you trust God's strength over your own limitations. It's a reminder that even when life feels heavy, His hands are strong enough to carry the weight. Faith over fear is a daily choice. It's waking up each day and deciding that no matter what comes your way, you're going to trust God. It's believing that even if you can't see the whole picture, God is painting a masterpiece. Fear might try to creep in, but when you choose faith, you declare that you trust God more than you trust your circumstances. You declare that He's in control, even when it feels like everything is falling apart. And that choosing faith over fear is where your true power lies. God's timing is something we often struggle to understand. We live in a world where we want things instantly, where waiting feels like an inconvenience, but God doesn't operate on our timeline. His timing is perfect, even when it doesn't align with our plans. It's easy to feel frustrated when things aren't happening as quickly as we want them to, but trusting God means accepting that His plan unfolds at the right time, not our time. His ways are higher than ours, and sometimes the delays we experience are His way of protecting us from stepping into something before we're ready. Rushing His plan can lead to unnecessary stress and heartache. Think about it. How many times have you tried to force something to happen only to realize later it wasn't the right time? God sees the bigger picture. He knows when to open doors and when to close them. If a door is closed right now, it's not because he's forgotten you. It's because he's setting things up in a way that's far better than what you could have planned for yourself. When you trust his timing, you can find peace in knowing that every season has a purpose. When it feels like nothing is happening, that's often when God is doing his most important work behind the scenes. Delays don't mean denial, they mean preparation. Trust that the waiting period is not wasted. In fact, it's during the waiting that God is shaping you, molding you, and preparing you for what's to come. Sometimes he has to close doors to redirect you to something greater. And other times he keeps a door closed because there's something better on the horizon. You just have to be patient and trust that his plan is unfolding perfectly. Timing is everything, and God's timing is never off. There's a reason why some opportunities pass us by, they weren't meant for us. And when we trust in his perfect timing, we avoid the frustration and disappointment that come from trying to force things to happen. God knows what you need before you even ask for it, and he knows exactly when to bring it into your life. Trusting his timing means letting go of the urge to control every aspect of your life and allowing him to guide your steps. Even when it feels like you've been waiting forever, you must remember that God isn't in a hurry. What feels like a delay to you is part of a larger plan that you can't fully see yet. He's never late, he's always right on time. The challenge is being patient enough to let his plan unfold. When you trust that his timing is perfect, it removes the pressure of trying to make things happen on your own. You can rest knowing that he's working things out for your good. Trusting God's timing is about surrendering control. It's about believing that his plan is better than anything you could imagine, and that every delay, every closed door, and every waiting season has a purpose. You might not understand it right now, but trust that when the time is right, God will open the doors that are meant for you. And when he does, you'll realize that his timing wasn't just perfect, it was exactly what you needed all along. He sees what you can't. God has a perspective that we'll never fully grasp. When life hits hard and you're staring at what looks like a dead end, it's easy to feel defeated. But while you're focused on the obstacle in front of you, God sees beyond it. He sees the path that's unfolding, the opportunities that are still hidden, and the ways your current challenges are actually preparing you for something greater. You might be questioning why things are happening the way they are, but he knows what's coming next, and it's far bigger than you can imagine. What feels like a setback is often a setup in disguise. When things don't go the way you planned, it can be tempting to think God has forgotten you. But that's never the case. Sometimes he allows setbacks because they redirect you to where you're supposed to be. The job you didn't get, the relationship that ended, the opportunity that slipped through your fingers, none of that is by accident. God is always moving pieces, aligning things for your good, even when you don't see it yet. In the moment, it's hard to understand why things aren't working out. But God sees the bigger picture, and sometimes he has to remove things from your life to make space for what's truly meant for you. Trust that every disappointment, every delay, and every door that closes is part of a greater plan. The pain you feel now is not the end of the story. God is preparing you, molding you, and positioning you for a future that's far greater than the one you had in mind. God sees potential where you see problems. You might be focused on the difficulty in front of you, but God is focused on the growth that's happening inside of you. He's using the challenges you face to strengthen you, to build your character, and to develop the resilience you'll need for the future. What looks like a setback is actually a building block for something greater. You may not understand it right now, but trust that God is using every moment for your benefit. Sometimes God's plan is so much bigger than your current vision that you can't even comprehend it. The detours you face today might be leading you toward a destination you never even dreamed of. God sees opportunities you're not aware of, connections you haven't made yet, and blessings you didn't know were possible. While you're focused on what you've lost, God is focused on what you're about to gain. Trusting that God sees what you can't is about releasing control. It's about believing that even when things don't make sense, God's hand is still at work. The setback is not the end, it's a turning point. When you trust that He sees the bigger picture, you can find peace in knowing that your current struggles are shaping you for the greatness that lies ahead. Keep moving forward because God is setting you up for something beyond your wildest dreams. Surrendering your worries to God is a powerful act of faith. We live in a world that constantly tells us to carry everything ourselves, our stress, our fears, our anxieties. But trying to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders will only break you down. God never intended for you to bear that burden alone. He wants you to lay it at His feet, to trust that He's in control and that He's big enough to handle all the things you're struggling with. It's not a sign of weakness to surrender. It's a sign of wisdom. It's recognizing that your strength comes from Him. When you hold on to your worries, they begin to consume you. They steal your peace, cloud your mind, and make you feel overwhelmed. But when you surrender them to God, you allow Him to step in and bring calm to the storm. He's not asking you to figure everything out on your own. He's asking you to trust Him. When you let go of your worries and give them to God, you make room for His peace to fill your heart and mind. You'll find that the weight you've been carrying becomes lighter because you're no longer carrying it alone. Surrendering doesn't mean that the problems will magically disappear, but it does mean that you're no longer trying to handle them by yourself. It's a daily act of trust, giving your stress and your anxiety to the one who already knows the outcome. God is fully aware of your struggles, and He's already working on solutions you can't even see yet. When you surrender, you're saying, God, I trust you with this. I trust that you're going to make a way where I can't see one. And that's when true peace comes in, when you stop trying to control everything and start trusting that He's in control. It's easy to want to hold on to your worries, to feel like you need to be in control. But surrendering your stress to God is an act of faith that requires you to trust Him completely. He knows your limits and He knows exactly what you need. When you let go, you give Him room to work in ways you can't even imagine. You stop relying on your own understanding and start relying on His wisdom. Surrendering is not about giving up, it's about giving over and allowing God to carry what you were never meant to carry alone. Surrendering your worries is about freedom. It's about releasing the things that are weighing you down and trusting that God will handle them in His perfect way. You don't have to have all the answers, you just have to trust that He does. When you surrender your worries, you open yourself up to the peace that only comes from God. You can rest in the knowledge that He's got you, that He's carrying the load, and that no matter what, you are not walking this path alone. God has a way of turning trials into triumphs. What you see as a struggle, He sees as an opportunity for growth. Every hardship you face is not a dead end, but a stepping stone towards something greater. It may not feel like it in the moment, but those challenges are molding you, shaping you into the person you're meant to be. The trials are never meant to break you, they're meant to build you. When you trust that God is working through your struggles, you begin to see the strength that's developing within you. It's easy to get discouraged when you're in the middle of a trial, when everything seems to be falling apart. But it's in those moments that God is doing His most transformative work. Your trials are not random, they are part of a divine process. Each one is designed to prepare you for the victories ahead. You may not understand why you're going through it, but trust that God has a purpose for every challenge. He doesn't waste your pain, He uses it to produce something beautiful. Trials test your faith, but they also strengthen it. When you're faced with difficulties, you have two choices: to let them defeat you or to let them refine you. God wants you to come out stronger on the other side. Your struggles are not the end of the story, they are the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where you emerge victorious, not because you never faced adversity, but because you trusted God to turn that adversity into triumph. Every time you rise from a trial, you rise stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the next level of your journey. Trust that God is using your trials to prepare you for something greater. The pain you feel today is setting the stage for the triumph you'll experience tomorrow. You might not see it right now, but God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating everything for your good. He's taking what was meant to harm you and turning it into something that will elevate you. The very thing that feels like a burden now could be the breakthrough that launches you into your destiny. When you look back, you'll realize that it wasn't the easy times that made you who you are. It was the trials. Those difficult moments became the foundation for your strength, resilience, and faith. God didn't bring you through those trials to leave you where you are. He brought you through them to show you that you can overcome anything with His help. The triumph is not just in the victory itself, but in the journey that got you there. Every trial has a purpose, and when you trust God, every trial leads to a triumph. Your trials are the very thing that prepares you for your purpose. They sharpen your character, build your faith, and remind you that with God, you can overcome any obstacle. So when you're faced with a struggle, don't lose heart. Trust that God is turning your trial into a triumph, and that He's using every challenge to shape you into the person you were always meant to be. Strength and weakness is one of the most profound truths of faith. In your weakest moments, when you feel like you have nothing left to give, that's when God's strength comes alive. It's easy to think that you need to be strong all the time, that showing weakness is a sign of failure. But in reality, your weakest moments are the very places where God's power is revealed. When you trust Him with your vulnerability, you give Him the space to do what only He can do, take your brokenness and turn it into something powerful. There's a beauty in realizing that you don't have to carry everything on your own. When you're weak, God steps in with a strength that goes beyond human understanding. It's not about pretending to have it all together. It's about knowing that when you fall short, God never does. His strength fills the gaps, lifts you up, and gives you the endurance to keep going. When you feel like you've reached your limit, that's when God's power shines brightest. He takes your exhaustion, your pain, your doubt, and transforms it into a testimony of His faithfulness. Your weakness is not a hindrance, it's an invitation for God to show His strength. We often resist our own frailty, thinking that we have to be self-sufficient. But God works best when we stop trying to rely on our own power and lean into His. In your moments of weakness, He is strong. In your moments of doubt, He is sure. God's strength is made perfect in your weakness because it is in those moments that you are reminded of just how much you need Him. And when you turn to Him, He meets you with a strength that surpasses all understanding. Think about the times when you felt completely empty, yet somehow you found the strength to push forward. That wasn't by accident. God was working in those moments, filling you with His power. When you trust Him with your weakness, you allow Him to do what you cannot do on your own. His strength is not limited by your limitations. In fact, your limitations become the very place where His greatness is revealed. What you see as weakness, God sees as an opportunity to showcase His glory. In your weakest moments, you have an opportunity to experience God's power in a way you wouldn't otherwise. When you're at the end of your rope, He steps in and carries you further than you could ever go on your own. It's in those moments of surrender, when you acknowledge that you can't do it alone, that God's strength becomes real. His power isn't just about giving you a boost, it's about completely transforming your perspective. What seemed impossible in your own strength becomes possible through Him. When life feels overwhelming and you're lost in confusion, that's when trusting God's guidance becomes essential. There are moments when you simply don't know where to turn, when every option seems uncertain and the path forward is unclear. But even in the midst of confusion, God knows exactly where He's leading you. His perspective is not limited by the fog of doubt or fear that clouds your mind. Trust that He sees the way forward, even when you can't. He's never lost, never confused, and never unsure. God's guidance is constant, even when you feel like you're walking in the dark. When you don't know which step to take, trust that He is directing your path. He doesn't leave you to figure it all out on your own. He promises to be with you, to light the way, and to guide your steps, one at a time. It may not always be clear in the moment, but His wisdom will lead you where you need to go. You may not see the whole picture right now, but God is orchestrating everything behind the scenes for your good. In times of confusion, it's easy to feel stuck, as if you're trapped in uncertainty. But God is always moving, always working, even when you don't see it. He makes a way where there seems to be no way. You might feel like there's no solution, no escape, no clarity in sight, but God specializes in making paths through the wilderness. He knows exactly what you need, and when you trust Him, you'll find that the way forward begins to unfold, often in ways you didn't expect. Trusting God's guidance means surrendering control. It's about letting go of the need to know every detail and choosing to follow His lead, even when the destination isn't clear. He's not just giving you directions, He's walking with you every step of the way. God's guidance isn't a map that shows the entire journey at once. It's a relationship where you trust Him to lead you step by step. And in that trust, you'll find peace even in the midst of confusion. God knows your heart better than anyone. He sees the dreams you hold deep within, the desires you may not even speak aloud. Even when those dreams feel distant or impossible, trust that He's fully aware of them. While you may sometimes question if He's forgotten, He hasn't. He knows the very things that keep you awake at night and the hopes that fill your soul. But here's the beauty in trusting Him. He's not just aware of your desires, He's working on them in ways you can't even imagine. Sometimes the things you long for feel delayed, and it's easy to wonder if they'll ever come to pass. But trust that God's timing is perfect. What you perceive as delay is often preparation. He's aligning things behind the scenes, shaping the situation, and even shaping you so that when the moment comes, it will be far greater than anything you could have orchestrated on your own. It's not about rushing the process, it's about trusting that His plans are always better than yours. God's understanding of your heart goes beyond your immediate wants. He knows not just what you desire, but what will truly fulfill you. Sometimes, the dreams He has for you are bigger than what you're asking for. While you may focus on one piece of the puzzle, God is putting together the whole masterpiece. Trusting Him means believing that He's working all things together for your good, even when the path seems unclear. What feels like waiting is often His way of ensuring you receive the best. There's a certain peace that comes when you realize that God knows your heart and is actively working to fulfill the desires He's placed within you. You don't have to force it or chase it down. Instead, you can rest in the knowledge that He is always working on your behalf, crafting something greater than you could ever plan. He's not just answering your prayers, He's fulfilling them in a way that will leave you amazed. No matter what you're going through, you never walk alone. In every storm, in every valley, God is right beside you. It's easy to feel isolated when life gets tough, to think that no one understands your struggles or that you have to carry the weight by yourself. But God promises that He will never leave you nor forsake you. Even when you can't see Him, even when you feel abandoned, He is there. He's walking with you through every trial, guiding you even when the path seems unclear. When the storms of life hit, it can feel overwhelming. The winds of doubt, fear, and uncertainty can make you feel like you're sinking. But remember, God is your anchor. He's not just watching from a distance, He's holding you steady, making sure the storm doesn't take you under. He's the calm in the midst of the chaos, the light in the darkness. When you trust in His presence, you realize that the storm may rage around you, but it can never defeat you because God is with you every step of the way. Sometimes the valleys in life feel endless. You're walking through difficulty, pain, or loss, and the journey feels long and lonely, but God is right there walking through the valley with you. He's not a distant observer, He's a close companion, guiding you toward the light, even when the darkness feels overwhelming. You may not always feel His presence, but He's there, leading you with love, giving you strength when you feel weak, and hope when you feel despair. God doesn't just walk with you through the good times, He walks with you through the hardest moments of your life. He doesn't abandon you in the valleys, He leads you through them. The truth is, you're never truly alone, even when it feels like you are. When you place your trust in God, you begin to see that His presence surrounds you, giving you the courage to face every challenge and the faith to believe that better days are ahead. His presence isn't just about comfort, it's about direction. He leads you toward the light, guiding you through the darkness of your circumstances and helping you find your way again. You don't have to have all the answers because God is your guide. He's walking ahead of you, preparing the way and ensuring that you make it through to the other side. The journey may not be easy, but with Him by your side, it's always possible. In every storm, in every valley, you can trust that God is with you. You are never alone, no matter how isolated you may feel. He walks with you, leading you, carrying you when you need it most, and bringing you through the darkest times into the light. Trust in His presence, and you'll find that no storm is too strong, no valley too deep. Because God is always walking with you, leading you toward victory. Trusting God means embracing hope in every situation, no matter how dire it may seem. Life is unpredictable, plans can fall apart, and dreams can feel shattered. Yet, in those moments of uncertainty, hope becomes your lifeline. It's the assurance that God is in control, that He has a purpose even when circumstances appear bleak. When everything seems to be going wrong, it's easy to give in to despair. But hope reminds you that God is still at work, weaving together a story that's greater than you can see. When you choose to hold on to hope, you're making a powerful declaration. You believe that God's plans will prevail over your own. You acknowledge that even when your path takes unexpected turns, He is still leading you toward a brighter future. Trusting in God doesn't mean that you won't face challenges. It means that you can face them with confidence, knowing He is by your side. Your hope is not rooted in what you can see, but in who God is and His unwavering promises to you. Sometimes it's in the darkest moments that hope shines the brightest. When everything seems to be crumbling around you, it's your faith in God that sustains you. He carries you through the storm, providing strength when you feel weak and light when you feel lost. Hope allows you to rise above your circumstances and to see beyond the immediate challenges. It's that inner conviction that no matter how hard the battle, victory is on the horizon because God is with you every step of the way. Remember, trusting God means believing that He is capable of doing the impossible. Your plans may not always unfold as you envision, but God's plans are always better. He knows what you need, often before you even ask for it. His timing and methods might surprise you, but hope assures you that there's a purpose behind every delay and every detour. Trusting Him means believing that He is working things out for your good, even when the outcome seems uncertain. In every situation, you have the choice to either succumb to doubt or to rise in hope. Trusting God is an active decision to hold on to the belief that He is greater than your challenges. When you cultivate hope in your heart, you create space for God's miracles to unfold. It's a powerful reminder that no matter what you face, you can trust that God will carry you through. Hope isn't just a feeling, it's a lifeline that connects you to the one who is always faithful, guiding you toward a future filled with promise. In conclusion, trusting God in every situation is not just a concept, it's a profound commitment to living with faith, hope, and assurance. No matter the storms you face or the valleys you traverse, remember that you are never alone. God walks beside you, guiding your steps and carrying your burdens. He knows your heart, understands your deepest desires, and works tirelessly to fulfill them in ways beyond your imagination. As you navigate life's unpredictable journey, hold on to hope. Trust that God's timing is perfect, that He turns trials into triumphs, and that His strength shines brightest in your moments of weakness. When confusion arises, lean on His guidance and remember that every setback may be setting you up for something greater. Your faith in Him will empower you to rise above every challenge and embrace the future with confidence. So as you leave here today, let your trust in God be your foundation. Embrace His presence, surrender your worries, and walk in the assurance that He is always with you. You are capable of overcoming anything that life throws your way, because with God, nothing is impossible. Trust Him, and you will find the strength to face each day with courage, knowing that He is leading you toward a bright and hopeful tomorrow.